Welcome to Rising Technologies. This is Harish. You are watching part 14 of Core Java video tutorial. In this session, we are going to learn about multi-dimensional arrays. In our last session, we have learned that an array is a collection of variables of similar type which is referred by a common name. And we know that array of any type can be created and may have one or more dimensions. In our last session, we have learned about one-dimensional array. In this session, let's have a look at multi-dimensional array. So to declare a multi-dimensional array, we can specify each additional index using another set of square brackets. For example, look at this declaration. This declaration declares a two-dimensional array variable called as 2D, and look at this, there are two different square braces. This notation declares that this 2D is a two-dimensional array variable. And look at this memory allocation using new operator. I have said new int 3 and 3. That means this will allocate an array. That array is going to have 3 rows and 3 columns. You can imagine this array something like this. Whenever in any program you want to store the values in a tabular form, or you can say in a matrix form, you can declare a two-dimensional array having specific number of rows and a specific number of columns. Let's have a look at a practical example in which I'm going to declare a two-dimensional array and read and display the values from the two-dimensional array. This is the sample program. I have already set up this program with this scanner class because I want to input some values from user and store these values in a two-dimensional array. So the syntax is data type, name of the array, number of dimensions equals new integer 3 rows and 3 columns. Now I want to input all these 9 values from end user. So let's have a nested for loop for that. For integer row equals 0, row is less than equals 2, and row plus plus. We know that within this array there are 3 rows and the indexes of these rows are 0, 1 and 2. That is why I have written this for loop within the range of 0 to 2. Now we know that within each row there is a column, and the column index starts from 0, 1 and 2. So I need to write a nested for loop for that, and I can say integer column equals 0, column less than equals 2 and column plus plus. Now let's print a message on the console and say enter any number. And using this scanner instance, I want to input a number from keyboard and assign it to this two-dimensional array. So two-dimensional array's row and column position equals s dot next integer value from the keyboard. So we know that this outer for loop will execute around 3 times, and for each execution of this outer for loop, this inner for loop will execute around 3 times. So 3 into 3, these two statements will execute 9 times. It will input 9 values and all the values will be arranged row by row in your two-dimensional array. Now let's print all these values, and to display all these values I have written again a set of nested for loops. Let's write a sysout statement over here. Let's print a tab and value from this two-dimensional array's row and column position. We know that when this for loop executes the first time, the value of r variable will be 0. When this r is 0, this inner for loop is going to execute 3 times and the respective value of the c variable will be 0, 1 and 2. That means it will print values from 0th row and all these columns. And I don't want cursor to be appear on next line. That's why instead of print ln method, I have executed this print method. But when the first row completes, we need to take the cursor on the next line. So when this inner for loop completes, I need to just say system dot out dot println, and this println method is going to take the cursor on next line. So let's compile this program and let's run this, and look at this. This program is going to input all the 9 values, and these values will be displayed in a tabular form using this nested for loop. Okay, so just like we have seen in our last example, that we can assign values to the array when we declare it. So I'm just going to get rid of these scanner class, its respective import statement, and I just want to assign all the values to this array while declaring it. So I don't need to input all these values from end user, and within a pair of curly brace I'm going to assign all these values. So these are the values that will be stored within the array. Okay, let's compile this. Let's evaluate the results and look at the output. The values which I have initialized to this two-dimensional array is displayed by this set of for loop. When we declare a two-dimensional array, we must understand this thing, that is, multi-dimensional arrays are actually array of arrays. So when I declare a two-dimensional array, each and every element of this two-dimensional array is actually a one-dimensional array. So we can say this element from a two-dimensional array is actually 0th one-dimensional array. This is first one-dimensional array and this is second one-dimensional array. So similarly, I can say that a three-dimensional array is an array of two-dimensional array. A two-dimensional array is an array of one-dimensional array, and one-dimensional array is an array of variables. So I can make use of for each style loop to loop through each and every element of this two-dimensional array. Now look at this piece of code. I have declared this two-dimensional array and I have encapsulated all these values within this array, something like this. So we know that this 2D array is an array of one-dimensional array. So this is the 0th element of this two-dimensional array, and what this element is, it is a one-dimensional array. So using for each style loop, I can visit each and every array of this two-dimensional array. So look at this outer for each loop. I have said for each integer one-dimensional array in two-dimensional array. So this outer for loop is going to execute 3 times, because this two-dimensional array is going to have 3 rows. That means this 2D array is a collection of 3 one-dimensional arrays. So when this for loop executes first time, this one-dimensional array is going to represent this row from your two-dimensional array, and using this one-dimensional array I can visit each and every element of this array using this inner for loop. Now look at this piece of code. I am saying for each integer variable in one-dimensional array. What this one-dimensional array is? This one-dimensional array is the first array of your two-dimensional array. So this inner for loop is going to visit each and every element of this one-dimensional array, and it will print the value of that particular element. After completion of this row, that means when this inner for loop completes, this sysout statement is going to take the cursor on next line, and this for loop will continue to read the two-dimensional array. So in the second execution of this for loop, this one-dimensional array reference variable is going to refer this particular array, and the inner for loop is going to visit each and every value within this one-dimensional array. This is how in the third iteration of this outer for loop, this 1D array is going to represent this particular array, and using the inner for loop, we are going to loop through each and every element of this one-dimensional array. Let's have a look at this thing. So I'm going to remove this index based for each loop, and instead of an index based loop, I'm going to say for each integer one dimensional array in two dimensional array. So syntax of the for each loop is very simple: for each element in collection. So we know that this 2D array is a collection of three one-dimensional array. So using this one-dimensional array reference variable, I'm going to loop through each and every element of this 2D array. So this 1D array is going to represent this particular row when the program enters in this for loop for the very first time. Now I need to loop through each and every element of this one-dimensional array. So I have declared a variable of type integer, and I want to loop through this one-dimensional array. And instead of an index based accessing, I'm just going to say print the value of this var variable. Now let's compile this and run this and look at the output. It has displayed each and every element of this two-dimensional array. Thank you for watching. For more details, visit our official site at www.risingtechnologies.in. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel.